Welcome to Innovating Music, a podcast from the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music. My name is Dr. Gigi Johnson. On our continuing saga that is Innovating Music, we look at lots of different types of change. Stefan Schulz runs Bitfury Surround, and he's trying to change the underlying ecosystem upon which much of this is built. He takes a look at a combination of artificial intelligence and blockchain to help us create a future connected music world where we all are connected to a platform that shares data, money, information, and actual assets so that we have a lot more flexibility on what we can be building for the future. Enjoy this podcast. You might have to step backwards a bit if you are missing out a bit on blockchain. We've had prior episodes on blockchain, but we're going to go down a bit of the rabbit hole with them about what they're trying to build in rethinking the underlying structure of music. So before all of this, you have a really great background, which I want to back up into, but can you start with a soundbite or two about what Bitfury Surround is?
So Bitfury Surround is a company, is an initiative that is really infrastructure play for the intellectual property industry, and we are starting with the music industry first because this is also where I originate from, and I've been spending about almost 30 years and 25 years in this industry, and then obviously this infrastructure will be used later on for film and for other for other IP as well. What it basically does is allows you to connect the dots between anything that happens from the origination of the actual copyright or of the content towards all the way to the end of the when the rights expire, which is usually 70 years plus the lifetime of the artist. And it gives you it has basically the capabilities of allowing you to pick up all the data and kind of navigate the value that you can generate out of interoperating with others in real time based on this data. And at the same time, because we are talking about a collaborative product, which is basically what copyrights are. Everybody that interacts and the data that is being exchanged on the platform is immutable due to the link to a very specific industry blockchain play, which is dedicated and bespoke to our industry.
So I'd like to come back to that because I'd like you to tell me why and how you got started with this. So can you back up maybe a little bit and share a bit about your really interesting background coming into this in your decades plus time in the music industry?
Yeah, I've actually always been in the business innovation space of the music industry, and started originally in radio, and then studied business and went into the diversification units of Polygram at that time before it became Universal Music. Worked on different fields that were not related to the recording. So, like for example, merchandising and licensing and all this kind of stuff. And then I took over the department in Germany for commercial and consumer relationships. Signing accountable for all the licensing and non-CD and non-physical product activities, which then in 2001. With the merger of Vivendi coming into play, was turning into one of the first digital departments in the world, and I ended up being the CDO, so the Chief Digital Officer for Universal Music in Central and Eastern Europe. Mainly working on the platform side, very early stage technology. Anything from IVR, so like voice recording systems, mobile networks, ringtones, and all this kind of stuff. And then transitioning later on into, of course, the download space and then streaming space, basically, monetizing and creating value in the connection of, let's say, our industry together with the technology industry.
So why music for you?
Music, because my family is more from a banking and insurance background, and I wanted to do business, but business on a topic that I love and that I like and that carries a lot of emotion. This is how I got into the music industry.
So you said you started with radio, though?
Yeah. I did an internship at Power 99 FM in Philadelphia with Jojo Davis, Miles Davis's brother, and some others. It was a lot of fun. Back in the day. So that was 88, something like that, 89, 90.
And so has music, I mean, you've seen then, I mean, even talking about, the chief digital officer, when that was a unique thing, right? So that you had people who were coming in to try to change the business from the inside and outside at the same time. And so you've been on kind of that interesting in-between road. We've had a few other people on the podcast who've been writing a similar space, but in a different dimension of it, where they were in early digital departments at a lot of folks. So what type of challenges did you face then in innovating in large music organizations, and especially in merging, as the business is changing, large organizations? Because it's different than the space you're in now. How is it to be in a large organization, but being nice about it at the same time?
Mainly, I would say the translation between the business logic on the one hand side and the business logic on the other side. That is, I think that's where it was the biggest challenge. And that is, it has to do with any kind of like processes, the way that things are cleared, who owns the rights, how do you adopt the rights to the various technological innovations? How would you ever even come to a point where you can create a conversation between the different parties and all this kind of stuff in order to really come to a fruitful business relationship, which is, of course, super challenging in environments where nobody really knows what they have and what value they can bring to the table and how is this value being split, right? And I think this is actually, it has remained a little bit like this even in the blockchain space now, because I see that there is a little, there's always kind of phenomenon of being lost in translation. And when it comes to value splits, I think this is where we have the by far largest challenge. And that also means to understand what actually your inventory is. In 2001, nobody actually had any rights for anything, right? It does not mean that, nobody knew what they actually was supposed to clear the rights for. So how can you get a clearance if you don't know what for? And then at the same time, the entire value chain was kind of challenged because the television stations didn't have any rights for the for the Mediatheken, which is like the online usage. Then OTT came into play, all this kind of stuff, ringtones, MVNOs. You name it. It's a long list.
Well, part of it also is that companies, if you're a big company and it doesn't look like, if you're in a big company, it doesn't look like it will be big business. I know that was a challenge for a lot of people, that in a large organization, it's like it cost legal time to review all this stuff. So every time a new opportunity would come in, if it doesn't look like a big deal, then people would not put the energy behind it necessarily. So there's a lot of people standing at the door asking to play, which at least was my interpretation of what a lot of CDOs were doing.
Yes, that's right. The problem here is that you have a huge leverage, which we call the value gap right now, between the platform industry economy and the data economy and the music industry and the music and the entertainment economy. And this value gap is of course, if you look at the size of these different sectors, right? I mean, you're growing on the platform side by 40% a year. Can you imagine 40 to 50% a year on a 2,000 billion level? And we are talking about 6, 7, 8% on a music industry level, maybe 10 on a 30 billion level, right? So that is such a asymmetry, okay, what we call it. And this is exactly where I have always been feeling very comfortable in the between.
You were doing some work in AR and VR and social media engagement and other things before you got to your current adventures. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, when I set up the digital unit in Universal Music with my team and with other teams in other territories, because we were like a global, digital team. I was very much engaged into transformational plays in the rights industry. So one of them is, for example, live entertainment. So I work with with Live Nation, Eventim, and others in Europe in order to monetize and ring fence and defend the rights of the promoters in their venues, and also with the content coming out of it, because there's a favorable situation in the German copyright law that allows that, and in the Austrian as well, which is probably now very important, especially in the light of what we see right now, live entertainment in a different way.
Well, live streams never used to be considered valuable up front, right? YouTube grabbed a whole bunch of them, but it was like, well, I don't, somebody's going to pay me for my live stream rights. Yeah.
Very interesting, because if you have a new set of rights that has never been considered, and the promoters, of course, have not been considered so much, then that is a very interesting one. And basically, I was working in all kind of niche areas where we could put some leverage on the intellectual property towards the platform markets. That's always been my game, in a sense, not for the benefits of both sides. And then that's when I came, when I discovered the huge potential that the blockchain play can bring to us.
Why this and why now? Why a combination of blockchain and artificial intelligence to try to deal with digital workflow and metadata?
What is different with blockchain is that it goes straight to the core of our industry, as it allows you to break down the industry to the maximum level. Yeah, so that means the collaborative aspects of things and the data aspects of things. You can break them with blockchain down to a level that has never ever been able for us to explore ever. Right. So just to give you an idea, the Bitcoin blockchain as an example, you can break one Bitcoin down into 100 million Satoshis. So you have the capabilities of breaking data points down. You can break down, collaborations into almost unlimited ways, and you will be able to follow. You will be able to track. You will be able to predict. You will be able to forecast any kind of movement in between these different parts. So if I give you an example, just to make it a little bit less abstract, I could potentially write a song with like 100 people, and each individual people,
which would be scary to figure that split up. But keep going.
Yes, but what you can do is you can split it, and you can follow this split across like all different channels, all different countries, all different jurisdictions. And you can also adopt the split based on the consensus of all the people involved. And the cool thing is that you would be able to include like entities in the split that were normally not even part of it. Like, for example, I have a radio station in Hong Kong that will give me, let's say, the first boost to my career, right? So I would say, okay, so for the first 2 weeks or 4 weeks, they will make sure that I will be discovered. Like, for example, on a show or something like that. You would be literally able to address one part of your entire royalties for as long as you want. You can say, okay, for the next 5 years, this particular promotion will take 10 or will get 10% of all of my royalties. And I can also split with anybody else in the world. I can make any kind of deal. It will all be interconnected, and you can always follow it back, and nobody can change it. So it's just mind blowing what this technology can do to the market.
So let me back up for folks who both have seen some other blockchain adventures so far, but also who haven't. This is more of an infrastructure and language that your average creator, small label would not see under the hood, that they would be connecting up with Surround through an intermediary?
Yes, pretty much. You would be like a credit card system or something like that, right? So you go to the US, you buy a pair of jeans, you go back to Germany. The vendor does not have a bank account in Germany. You don't have a bank account in the US. It still works. You don't notice it. The transaction works and it's happening.
So the people who would work with you would be other businesses that would connect in to this infrastructure system, and they would all have to be buying off to be on the same single system? Or could this be a parallel system with other blockchain generated systems? Or does everyone need to be essentially on the same underlying language, for lack of a better term?
No, not really, because it's of course it is very tailored, and it is let's say it's kind of bespoke, of course, to our specific market needs. It's completely open, so anybody can build whatever they want on it. But it's the exact opposite of when Apple came into the market with their last infrastructure game, because that was very centralized. Now you have to think of it as a decentralized, infrastructure marketplace that everybody can connect to. And in the end, certain people, in this case, artists, labels, publishers, and perhaps collecting societies, will be able to retrieve their information and consolidate their information to their specific view in order to navigate what's happening on this infrastructure.
So if someone would like to work with attaching or connecting to your platform or piloting with what stage would they need to be at to step in with you? Or what stage are you at to step in with them to start connecting with people who might be listening to this podcast?
So you would be able to connect not so far in the future. There are also, several companies now ramping up for connecting to it. And then there will be a kind of a consolidating software stack, which is similar to Salesforce or others, where we will provide some tools that will allow you as an artist to work with it, or as a label to work with it, or a publisher to work with it, because it is really all about making sure anybody can operate and interoperate in the way they want. So if an artist wants to become a DSP, this will be possible. So this would be really revolutionary, right? And this is the kind of thing that will happen on such a blockchain. Or if you just want to, provide, smart cue sheets, for example, which is one of our partners is doing that to all the TV stations in the world and in real time. And then that's connected to the data. I mean, that the data is going to be put on the ledger here. Then this can be done in real time, and people and the artists will see their income real quick, stuff like that. And then on the other hand, on the other side, you have the data. You have companies coming in, platforms coming in, working with the data, interoperating and exchanging the data. And they will be mainly, I would say, upcoming developers and businesses. And then on the other hand, you will have to wait a little bit for the significance of integrity, and the significance of truth and trust and transparency in the market itself, right? So for the moment, of course, people would say, listen, my numbers are correct. I have everything in my cloud. You can believe me, right? So what's the purpose of this? But if you carry it a little bit further and you look at all the different entities and all the different pieces of the puzzle interacting and interoperating, then if you jump across one or two or three exploitation administration steps, then nobody is so sure anymore if the data is correct, right? That is where the significance of such system kicks in.
It kind of re-breaks the model of having kind of a linear distribution and additive products to be able to instead plug and play different parties who also will get data and money out of the system.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to create it's a little bit like an internet of content. and you can connect to anything, and anybody can connect to anything. And the good thing is here that through the blockchain play, blockchain is actually something you would not even talk about. It just works, right? But through the technology itself, you can not only transport information, but you can also transport value, and that's a killer app. That is really the killer argument here.
So we are already toward the end of our conversation here. Is there anything that you'd like to mention to our wonderful audience that we haven't talked about already?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to mention that there is a lot of let's say value to gain outside the scope of what is being monetized and what's being marketed for the moment. There is a lot of creative potential out there in the world that can be picked up and can be automatically connected to our market and then to our industry, so that the entire market has a lot more potential to grow in a more like exponential way than going like percent by percent, and also to break a little bit free from this very, very, very strong focus on one exploitation mechanism, right? Which is, of course, the streaming. It's a predominant one. But there are many, many angles to explore. And I think what is really due for our industry, and it would be great to interact or to have conversations about this, is that we have to talk and think together how we can get away from this these more kind of old school administration schemes and ways to interoperate, and how would we be able to put more efficiency into the data flow, and most importantly, incentivize people based on business, but not on science. That is the most important thing, because this is when infrastructure comes into play. Normally, it's a very, very tricky stage one, because many very, very smart people have already thought about all this new metadata structures, new ways of how to put the data and the content flow and the administrative flows together. But if you don't have a business model behind it, and if you don't put it into a perspective of individual motivation in order to move towards this goal, then you will find yourself very, very much fighting against the adoption. And this is, I think, where Apple was very, very strong, because they gave all the tools that you need in order to boost the value immediately. You had the hardware, you had the software, the whole experience was there, and then boom, the business came up. So that, I think, without the business approach, it is going to be without incentivizing somebody to do this, it will never take off. And I think this is what blockchain brings. It will allow people to, in the future, in tokenized economies, it will allow people to remunerate and to pay and to promote and to have an income based on micro actions and microtransactions, and that's going to invigorate the entire industry much more than today.
But and let me sort of circle back then, though, with the framing, though, that to me what worked with Apple is making it the level of abstraction and design so that your average person didn't necessarily need to know anything happening under the hood. So that's, to me, the other part of it is the narrative of it, right? The design and the ease of use. And actually, we started out our conversation today talking about how everyone's using all these different technologies from home and trying to be comfortable and figuring it all out. So look forward to both interoperability, but also thinking about now, we are all now becoming accidental digital non-natives living in all these digital spaces. I think it is time for sense making for some of this that could be really helpful right now. If someone wants to talk with you and follow up and say, hey, Stefan, this is fabulous. You're presently in Germany, and we're all over the world. How would you like people to reach out?
Oh, you can basically just reach out either by emails, through our website, or by any LinkedIn, any other platform. The thing is this, because you were just asking me who I would like to interact with and who love to exchange with, is also anybody that wants to innovate and bring new business models and brings new products to the market and has the feeling that it's difficult to interoperate with the industry, that has the motivation, just like me in the beginning, to make money, with having fun at the same time, right? And to understand that the future is decentralized. So that means everything in the future that carries value has to come from some sort of a decentralized approach, right? And that allows for almost anybody to create something great. And this is what I would love to encourage, and I would love people to get in touch with me with, to see what are the exciting things you want to build. What do you think is going to be valuable for artists, for labels, for publishers, and for others, and even for the data economy to make money with and to generate value and to make a living with in this space. That would be amazing.
Well, Stefan, thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you for sharing with us your journey so far.
Thank you.